My name is Karin Wolok. I lead the developer community for StarTree, and I am going to present to you on turning users into advocates at scale. I'm going to try to run through this as fast as I can. We only have 30 minutes, so it might feel a little rushed. If you have any additional questions, you can always reach out to me. This is you can honestly just Google Karin Wolok. I'm on everything, so you can find me on anything. But this is my Twitter handle. And the only thing I ask is that if you do find this valuable, please share it online or with your friends or other community manager people. That's the only thing, and also provide feedback if you do have any. So yeah, just to jump right into it, like I said, 30 minutes. So I'm going to try to work really, really quickly. Okay, so talk a little bit about my journey. So I'm going to work a little bit backwards in this presentation. I'm going to tell you a little bit of stories and then give you some lessons of what I've learned. And then hopefully there will actually be some really solid takeaways from this presentation. My goal. So first, I started a women's networking group maybe 13 years ago when I lived in New York City. It started as like, hey, I just wanted to meet my friends for happy hour. I realized that when I talk to my girlfriends, we always find ways to help each other. There was like a lot of resource sharing. And like, I didn't call it a resource sharing group, but essentially that's what it was because people wouldn't understand what I was saying. So I called it networking. But I'm not a fan of the word networking because I think it's misused. But organically, I launched it in New York and then I launched it in Philadelphia and it blew up. It just became literally thousands of women. I don't even know how it happened. It was an accident. But I've been doing community management with that for 13 to 15 years. I don't even know how long ago it's been since I started it. And then after a couple odd jobs or whatever, I found myself as my first formal community management role at Neo4j. I was leading the developer community. It's a graph database company. And now I am at a company called StarTree, leading the developer community around an open source project called Apache Pinot, and obviously the StarTree community as well. So my first observation coming into Neo4j, when I first joined Neo, I realized that the community was really already very healthy. Like the members were engaged, people were talking to each other, people were sharing. There was like contests and competitions, and there was no community manager like in the role, which I was like, how did this even happen? There's obviously something here that's causing this community to be healthy. And I contributed it to essentially one thing. There's obviously other things that go into this. It's not just as simple as this one thing, but it's this person right here. So this man's name is Michael Hunker. He's been doing developer relations for the Neo4j community since Neo4j basically started 10 years ago or whatever. But I realized I'm like, this is healthy because of him. And the things that I noticed that he was consistently doing was gratitude. He was always thanking people. Like people would do something small. It's just like, oh, thank you for doing this, and thank you for doing that, and thank you for this person, and like just so many thank yous, or just an insane amount of gratitude in this community, essentially coming from this man solidly. I think he kind of set the tone for this kind of grateful value inside of the community, which I think is huge. The other thing is recognition. Michael was very good at recognizing small contributions, little answers here, little comments there. He was always picking it out and saying, thank you. I saw that you did this and I saw that you did that. Thank you. So like recognitions didn't go unnoticed. Like if somebody did something small in contribution for the community, it was recognized and he would point it out. And the third thing is inclusion. He was always including everybody in everything, just sharing everything, information, opportunities, stories, contests, whatever. If they were like working on something specific, he would reach out to individual people that he thought it would be relevant for. And he was really, really good in inclusion. And I think essentially a lot of this stuff kind of came naturally for him, but I credit a lot of the health of the Neo4j community when I came in was because of this man. So community ecosystem, right? So this is how I kind of look at essentially like community contributions in general. Okay. What are you asking from your users? And is it valuable for the rest of your community? Essentially what you're trying to build is like this ecosystem / like life cycle of community contributions, right? You want to ask your community and your users to contribute things that are actually going to be valuable to other people in the community. And the benefit of that is it actually ends up creating some kind of feedback loop, because when your users are creating contributions that are helping other people in the community, those people are grateful and they share their gratitude and their recognition of these contributions, which essentially feeds the contributors, makes them feel very good, makes them feel impactful, and motivates them to contribute more. So it's really important to ask people for things that are actually going to be valuable. This means do not ask your community for product feedback if your product team is not going to be listening. You have to make sure that there is a full feedback loop. One way you can go about this is kind of work a little backwards. What are you trying to get from your community? So like maybe it's like organic content, that is going to be surfacing online. So maybe you can suggest them some topics that you think are going to be valuable to the community, things like that. But like, you want to make sure that someone is actually listening. If you're going to ask them for blogs, make sure somebody is reading, right? And I think this is really important to keep in mind, is this big life cycle, because essentially one thing feeds into the other, and that's how you grow a healthy community. It's an ecosystem. Okay. Types of users. So this is a very generalized view. And some of these kind of might sound a little bit weird. Some of them I just kind of named myself. Some of them I read from other places. But I think like overall, there's 3 different types of contributors. The first one is the lurkers. Okay. These are the people that, it's not negative. I know it kind of sounds negative. I'm not trying to make it sound negative, but generally these people just watch and absorb content. So they'll read blog posts online, they'll watch videos, they'll like search for answers online. You might be a lurker yourself on like a support group, like Apple support. If you have something wrong with your phone, you go on Apple support, you read all the community comments, you solve the problem, and then that's it. You leave, right? Essentially, you're a lurker. You're not contributing in any way, shape, or form, not even saying, yeah, that was helpful. So these are like lurkers. They are not bad to the community. They're actually essential to have this. And this is part of the ecosystem that I was talking about. Even though it sounds kind of negative, they are essential to having this in the community. And it's okay that they just watch and absorb. The next one is your commenters. So these are people who do a little bit more than the lurkers. They're essentially lurkers that engage a little bit. These are people who ask questions, they give feedback, they make comments, things like that. So these are like, I categorize them as commenters, but they're essentially a step above lurkers because they engage a little bit, but essentially they're absorbing all the community contributions and giving a tiny little bit of nuggets of feedback along the way, or questions or something along those lines. And then the third one are your champions and your contributors. I don't feel like I need to discuss this too deep because most people know champion programs. These are your biggest advocates. They're the ones that answer a bunch of questions. They write blog posts. They do all the things, translate stuff into different languages, like whatever have you. So these are your champions and your contributors. Now, one thing to keep in mind is like, it's important to have all of these pieces in your community, right? Like, what is the sense of having your community contributors contribute stuff that there are no lurkers and there's nobody reading it, right? Essentially, there needs to be value. This is going back to the whole ecosystem thing. But not only for that, but it's, also for the feedback loop. Like, you want the contributors to feel like they've provided value. And how do they do that? If they give a talk or something and there's a bunch of questions and a lot of comments, thanks, great talk, blah, 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 that makes them feel good, makes them want to motivates them to do more contributions. One thing to keep in mind, you can get these different levels to progress and do more and more contributions, but you're not going to get your lurkers to all become contributors. It's just not going to happen. I mean, there's obviously exceptions to every rule. Chances are it's not likely to happen, but that's okay. Again, because their feedback, their viewership, like high views on a video that one of your community users made is going to make them feel good, even if these people didn't give a bunch of thumbs up, right? So, but you can get them to do a little bit more. So like it is essentially you want to have this be kind of like this ecosystem of things, but one of the best ways is to get each level, ask them to do like an easy to get started task, something slightly bigger than what they would have done before. This takes me to my next slide. So you want to kind of minimize the barrier to entry. So if you want to go make your lurkers into commenters, make your commenters into contributors. You have to move them step by step, little by little, with small action items. So you don't want to ask your lurkers to, go and write a blog post. They're not going to do that, right? But what they might do is one small step, one small action bigger than what they were doing before. So normally, you were viewing that video or what I was talking about, you're an Apple support, and it's like, was this helpful for you? Thumbs up or thumbs down? You might click thumbs up, right? That already is transforming you from a lurker to a commenter. You did a little bit more. And then I'm going to kind of go into how this kind of strategy works together to like really get them to do more and more contributions little by little. But you can ask your lurkers to comment on things. You can ask them to applaud. You can ask them to ask questions. You can ask them to give feedback to the author. You can ask them to share things. Like the lurkers watching this. Like if you were just viewing and absorbing the content, great. All I'm asking is share it or something. So you can ask them for small contributions. And then with your commenters, you can ask them to give more specific feedback to the contributors, be like, hey, I'm glad you like this. Would you like to leave a message for the author? Like we could send it to the author, or maybe like they reach out directly to the person, something along those lines. But it's a small ask more than what they were already doing. So you're not asking them to write a blog post. You're asking them for a little bit more than what they were doing. Okay. Minimizing the barrier to entry. Okay, so this is, again, minimizing the barrier to entry. I take a lot of examples. Let me go back a second. I take a lot of examples from my own, I drive a lot of things based off of empathy and things in my own experiences. And I am a Google reviewer. I review things, restaurants, places, things that I go. And essentially they sucked me into this because this is not something I was going to do. I remember my friends who were like Yelpers. I was like, oh, this is never going to be me. And now it's me. So I'm like a Google reviewer now, like really writing serious Google reviews. Okay, so Google reviews, why these are so brilliantly created. So first, you get this little notification and it's like, hey, how was Stubbs barbecue, right? And then it tells me underneath it, it says like, it asks me a small thing, like, how was it? But then it also tells me that I'm the top 10 reviewers of bars and restaurants or whatever. And I'm like, well, makes me feel good, right? So they're already telling me, you are impactful, my friend. You are helping other people. And then they're also telling me what the potential impact is of my contribution to the community. They're saying, if you post a picture, chances are it's going to get 6,000, 6,700 views, right? So they're not only telling me you are valuable, but this is going to be very valuable to community. And it's proven that this is going to be valuable to the community, right? How could I not want to give it a little 5-star thing? It's like, it's easy. So of course it's a small 5-star thing. They ask me for a very, very minimal contribution. You guys might've found yourself doing this at some point too. And then what do? After I put the contribution in, they say, thank you for the tip. So they're providing gratitude, right? They're saying, you are very impactful. This is how much impact you could have on the community by providing this content. This is the whole ecosystem, right? I'm feeding the ecosystem. And then thank you for doing that. Here's what your contribution did. That's also a big one that Google Reviews does. Like your photo here was viewed by blah, 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 whatever, this amount of people, which is really impactful. So then a couple days later, actually, this is the same day. This is the same day. A couple days later, they nugget me again. And they're like, hey, you're also top 10 of restaurant reviewers. Of course I am, which is probably BS, but who cares? Doesn't matter. It makes me feel good. I feel like I'm an impactful person because I am obviously the top of the restaurant reviewers. And then the next action item that they ask of me is more than just a 5-star review. Like, tell us how it was. They're asking me to answer questions. This is kind of the steps we were talking about, right? So like they're asking me for a little bit of contribution, 5 stars, and then they're asking me to answer questions or like write a review, and it's a little bit more and more and more. So when I do that, when I do any kind of contribution, I get points. The points lead to nothing, by the way. Like, I don't even know where this ends up or how many points I should get, but it makes me feel good because it makes me feel like I'm leveling up, right? I'm going up higher. Like I was top 10% and now I have plus 3 points, which means nothing, but like doesn't matter. And then it also says contribute more. Again, small call to action, a little bit bigger than what it was before. Little bit, until you get this person sucked in and then they become actually one of your top 10 restaurant reviewers. And then, of course, they're asking me for this complicated questions, and I'm just feeding the Google system with all the information they could possibly need without actually going to the restaurant. Um, and essentially, it does feed the community, right? So I am creating this overall ecosystem. But the point is of this whole process of how this company sucked me in is they did this. The first is they showed the potential impact. They said, you are very impactful, and here is how much impact you can actually make. That is a big deal. This is a high demand thing. Then they shared gratitude. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, Karin, for doing this. Thank you so much. They showed what the actual impact is. Sometimes this is really difficult to do. Like you might have, a contributor who created a video or something like this. It's a kind of manual work to like go in, see how many views it got, and then go back and tell them about how well their video performed. But this is so crucial because if you want people to contribute more, they have to know that it's valuable to other people in the community. You can't just let it go unnoticed, right? It's a recognition. Thank you. Wow, look at how many people you reached. You changed so many lives. Leveling up, also the feelings of like growing, right? Like I want to always feel like I'm going higher and higher and higher. These points, like where am I going? I don't know. It doesn't matter, but like, and then it's each one is the very next level of contribution. So small call to action, little by little by little. Okay, so motivations of contribution. So I went over this in the last slide, but I want to kind of hammer in on these because I think these are all like very, very, very important. So the first thing is gratitude. You have to say your thank yous. So it's not always just from you, right? It could be other people from your team, and it could also be other community members. So like this is where you're feeding into the ecosystem. Ask your other community members, the commenters, to give some feedback and say thank you to the authors or the contributors or whatever. Get thank yous. Like gratitude is huge. The other one is recognition. And this is privately and publicly. If someone does something super small, I mean, there is a question popping up in the Slack, and some random person comes in and be like, oh, I found that this actually worked for me too, blah, blah, blah. Write to them privately and say, wow, thank you so much for answering that question. Like that really helps a lot. And like, blah, blah, blah. And we saw that you do it. Thank you. We recognized it. And this is publicly and privately. So you don't have to necessarily just say thank you privately. You also can recognize them and thank them publicly. You can create digital images and be like, thank you to blah, blah, blah for answering these questions. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The other one is inclusion. Including people in the efforts that you're doing, letting them know about what's going on and how they can be involved. If you're working on something, reach out directly. Like one-on-ones is really powerful, by the way, a lot more than like general posts. So, but if you're working on something, talk to them. You would be surprised at how many people would be like, yes, I'm in. Then you have feelings of leveling up, right? Like they're growing. Like you are now like one of our top contributors. This is where like champion and advocacy programs and all this kind of stuff comes in. And feelings of impact, usefulness, and value, and then earn swag. This is a little bit of a controversial topic, but I think it is to some degree. But this is not a hey, everyone gets a t-shirt. This is like something that is exclusive to you based on the contributions that you've made, and like it shows, and it's a very dedicated, hyper focused piece of swag. All right, so earn swag programming. I think earn swag can be really powerful. Swag that's just given away to everybody is like, that's the kind of stuff that gets tossed out. But I want to share the story specifically because I think this is really strong. So I'm going to talk about the American Red Cross and what they do to get you to donate blood. And once you are in their system, how you can't get out. So I'm a plasma donor. And I don't know if you know, but plasma is like a big thing to do. It's like you have to like get your blood pumped out. It takes 2 hours in one vein and out the other. And it's this whole big process. But I'm basically in their system. I used to give blood, and then I realized I was AB positive blood type, and I was like, oh, I should be giving plasma because I'm ideal for that, whatever. But by the way, you guys should all give blood because it really does save lives. But anyway, so what they do with Earn Swag programming. At the beginning of the year, they sent me this email. Now, in this email, it said, if you donate, blood or plasma or whatever, specifically plasma, because they're obviously tailoring to me as a contributor, they're like, you will get these these different items, right? These different prizes. So like between 4 to 5 donations, you'll get this cooler. 6 to 7, you get this stupid $15 gift card that nobody cares about. And if you do 8+ donations, you get this lightweight jacket. Now, obviously, I don't really care about a $15 gift card. Like 6 to 7 contributions is a lot. I am going to aim for this big jacket. Now, this jacket is an Earn Swag jacket. It specifically says on the jacket, Plasma Donor, American Red Cross. I'm like, this is something that I wanted this jacket like more than you could imagine. Like, by the way, I got the jacket. It's not even, it's like very lightweight. I was like, I didn't realize how lightweight it was. It was probably like a $20 item. But anyway, I'm still very happy I got it. I haven't worn it once. It's just sitting in my closet. Doesn't matter. So the point is that what American Red Cross does is they have this annual contribution thing, right? They're like, you will earn all these contributions for this whole year for doing your contributions. And yeah, and like and it says Earn Swag. So they tell you this at the top of the year. And then they also tell me I'm part of a winning team. No, then they also have pop-ups, which are like exclusive kind of swag giveaways, holidays, etc. So this is very big too, because like you have one that's like just the whole annual thing, and then randomly you have, oh, Christmas, we're doing this holiday exclusive giveaway, or for Valentine's Day or whatever, which like I mean, it works on me too. I'm like, they send it to me and I'm like, I drive everything with empathy, by the way. Like the things that I feel is usually how I build my program. So this is why I give all these stories. So like if I know that I am, if they're like giving this like exclusive Valentine's Day blood donor thing, I want that shirt. I'm going to go and do it. It motivates me to do it with a limited time, exclusive time frame. So they do basically the combination of annual prizes that you can earn over time that they tell you about at the top of the year. And then they also have these random pop-ups, holidays, exclusives, random contests and things like that. So I think this is the way to do it well. Okay. So making users feel like they're part of something bigger. So I think this is important. I'm going to give some examples of some of the stuff that I've done, but essentially you want to create a feeling for your contributors that when they're doing something, it's like when they're contributing, it's part of like something massive, right? It makes them feel like they're, I don't know, I guess impactful of like something like larger. So when you can create programs that tie things in, be like, all right, we're going to create, like, let's say you're doing a pop-up exclusive thing. I'm just kind of giving some examples. And you could be like, we're going to do a series of blog posts in different languages. If you can translate this blog post, you get this exclusive t-shirt that says I'm a translator of blah, 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 whatever kind of exclusive t-shirt you want. But this is a one-time thing where everyone's doing all the translation all at once, right? That's like an example of how like they're part of something bigger. Like your contribution is part of this whole big thing. So this is an example of something we did, Global Graph Celebration Day. We decided to take the guy who invented graph theory. It was his birthday, April 15th. We said, everybody all around the world, organize your own events. We'll send you t-shirts. And we did. We like literally boxed up t-shirts, sent them to all the event organizers. We had 60 events in 6 continents. It was crazy. But it was absolutely amazing. Another example, this is kind of like the exclusive Earn Swag thing, is we did a visualization, the V-Day, like Valentine's Day recap. And basically their job was to screenshot and tweet, right? So like we got a lot of people who weren't normal contributions doing it because it's a simple contribution. And everyone got this exclusive Valentine's Day t-shirt. It was really, really cool. We got a lot of crazy social buzz around it. But this was like, part of a larger kind of program. Okay. That's actually, this is from the Graph Celebration Day. This was in Sydney. I don't remember. It doesn't matter. Okay. No, this is Curacao. He's holding the map. Okay. Anyway, we had everybody from all the different countries hold up a sign that says "Hello World" in their language, which was really cool. But yeah, everyone was wearing the t-shirt on the day. It was crazy. There was like so many people all over the world. It was really, really fun. So anyway, there was this this presentation that I saw at CMX Summit actually a couple years ago by Jessica Wow. I don't know how to pronounce the last name, but okay. So Jessica gave a presentation on what we can learn from indigenous tribes to our communities. And I think there's some really cool takeaways. So I just kind of wanted to include it. Man, I have like 5 minutes left. Okay. So the first thing is a sense of oneness, right? And this is kind of like making people feel like there's something bigger, that same kind of idea. I think it kind of encapsulates that. So you want to make other people feel like they belong to something, right? There's like a oneness feeling of your community. So this could be color, it could be language, it could be initiations of getting in, things like that. But that's like a big one. The next one is kinship, feeling of belonging. So it's like it's got to feel like family like. You can have nicknames for family like brother, or refer to each other as siblings. Language, it's good to have a common language, and be conscious about like what you're using in the group. So like certain types of greetings and things like that. So like you can have little, insider language. Clear roles. This will also tie into your champion programs and things like that if you have different levels of contributions, but like essentially hunters, gatherers, nurturers, right? Like you can label clear, defined roles inside of your community. Leaderships. It needs leadership, not a dictator, but ranking, like leading by example. So it's really good to have leadership. A common belief. Rites and rituals. So these are like things you need to do. Circles, chants around a fire. It's informal and formal bonding. This could also be part of like that oneness initiation kind of thing as well. And light and play. So bringing lightness to the madness. I highly recommend this talk. You could see this at probably online somewhere if you Google it. That's how I found it. Okay, finding the small contributions. Once you create your contribution system, start working on the process to identify people and get them to the next stage. So initially the process is like a little bit more hands-on, but as you grow, you can start to automate and scale your process. So this is an example of this guy. He was just, posted in the Slack. We've got him to introduce himself, which was a big deal, little tiny contribution. And then, he said, I'm getting started, blah, blah, blah. And then we're like, oh, we're really looking forward to what you're going to talk about. Blah, blah. And we're already starting to ping him about like, thank you for coming in and, sharing and whatever. We actually did this with, somebody came in and somebody asked about like the difference between our technology and another technology. And, somebody else from the community just answered it. And he's like, oh, I did this. And I asked him, I was like, I wrote to him privately and I was like, this is a big question. A lot of people ask about this technology compared to the other technology. You should write a blog post. And he did. He went off and wrote a blog post about it. So you never know where it's going to lead. Okay, takeaways. I'll just screenshot the slide. Always consider these first: gratitude, recognition, inclusion, feelings of leveling up, feelings of impact, usefulness, and value, and earn swag. And always consider the community ecosystem. The contributions should feed into the cycle. One thing helps the other, and it should just continue building, right? So you got to do your best to keep the cycle moving in all directions. Ask the lurkers to give a little feedback, and the commenters to give a little more, and the contributors to do a little more, and so on and so forth around the circle. You can also ask your lurkers what they're looking for, what kind of content, right? And feed that back into your contributors and things like that. And also create contribution levels for almost every level of user. Create a ladder of easy contribution. And that is the end of the talk. You can literally find me on anything. Just Google. I'm the only Karin Wolok in the world. If you like this and found this helpful, please share it with someone else or on Twitter, or give CMX Summit feedback about what you thought. And I'm always happy to chat, so feel free to reach out to me. And thank you so much for listening to my talk.